Captain Li Huan stood at the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. The massive diplomatic outpost floated in space like a small metal city. Ships of every shape and size docked at its many ports. Some looked like smooth eggs, others had sharp edges that could cut through space itself. Each ship brought different aliens to the most important peace talks in galactic history. Li Huan had seen many aliens during his 20 years in the Diplomatic Security Corps. He knew how to read their body language, understand their customs, and most importantly, keep them safe during talks. But today felt different. Today, the Vorthak were coming. The Vorthak were legends throughout the galaxy, 8 feet tall with muscles like steel cables. Their hands ended in claws that could tear through metal. Their teeth were designed to crush bones. They had conquered 12 star systems through pure strength and fear. Other aliens whispered their name in dark corners. Children had nightmares about them. "Captain, incoming message from the Vorthak flagship," said Lieutenant Kim Jun, his voice tight with nervousness. Li Huan nodded. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life. A massive Vorthak face filled the display. Its yellow eyes burned like small suns. Scars covered its dark gray skin. This was Ambassador Krelthak, leader of the Vorthak delegation. "Human Captain," Krelthak's voice was like grinding stone. "I am Krelthak of the First Hunting Pack. We come for peace talks, but know this. We do not trust easily. Your security. Measures will be tested." "Ambassador Krelthak," Li Huan replied calmly, "Harmony Station welcomes all who come in peace. Our security is for everyone's protection, including yours." The Vorthak's eyes narrowed. "We shall see, human. We dock in 1 hour. Have your strongest warriors ready. This talk decides if our peoples fight or trade. Choose your guards wisely." The screen went black. Li Huan felt his team tense behind him. Dr. Park Nari stepped forward from the science station. She was the station's head doctor for alien biology. Her calm face showed no fear, but Li Huan saw her hands shake slightly. "Captain," she said, quietly, "I've been studying Vorthak biology for months. They're not just dangerous because of their strength. They're pack hunters. They see everything as either threat or prey. We need to show we're neither." "How do we do that?" asked Sergeant Choi Hana, the team's weapons expert. Dr. Park Nari pulled up a hologram of a Vorthak. "We show respect but not fear. Stand straight but don't challenge them. Never turn your back but don't stare. They value strength but they hate weakness more than anything." Li Huan studied the hologram. The Vorthak looked like death walking on 2 legs. Their reputation was built on 1,000 victories. No one had ever beaten them in direct combat. But somehow, humans had convinced them to come to peace talks. That had to mean something. "Private Yusuna," Li Huan called to the youngest member of his team. "You'll be on medical bay security. Dr. Park might need samples or have injured. Aliens to treat." Yusuna nodded eagerly. She was new, but eager to prove herself. At 22, she was the youngest human ever assigned to diplomatic security. Some people said she was too young for such important work. Li Huan believed everyone deserved a chance to show their worth. 1 hour later, the station's main docking bay filled with the sound of heavy footsteps. The Vorthak delegation arrived like a small army. 12 warriors in dark armor followed Ambassador Krelthak. Each one was bigger than the largest human. Their eyes scanned everything, looking for threats or weakness. Behind them came something unexpected. Another Vorthak, but this one moved differently. She walked slower, more carefully. Her armor was lighter, decorated with symbols Li Huan didn't recognize. This had to be Krelthak's mate. "That's Sith Ara," Dr. Park Nari whispered. "Intelligence said she might come, but we weren't sure. Vorthak females rarely leave their home. Worlds during—" She stopped talking. Her face went pale. During what? Li Huan asked. During breeding season. Captain, if she's here, she might be carrying eggs. Vorthak are extremely protective of pregnant females. This changes everything. As if she heard them talking, Sithara suddenly stopped walking. She put one clawed hand against the wall and took a deep breath. Her yellow eyes closed tight. Ambassador Krelthak was beside her instantly, his massive arms supporting her weight. The other Vorthak warriors formed a protective circle around their leaders. Their claws came out. Low growls filled the air. Every alien in the docking bay stepped back. Some ran. Medical emergency, Dr. Parknari said, already moving toward the Vorthak. Captain, I need to help her. Wait. Li Huan grabbed her arm. They might see that as an attack. But Dr. Parknari was already walking forward with her hands empty and visible. She spoke in the Vorthak language, her words careful and respectful. Great Mother, I am a healer. May I offer help? Krelthak's burning eyes fixed on the small human doctor. For a moment, Li Huan thought the ambassador might kill her on the spot. Then Sithara spoke, her voice weak but commanding. Let the healer approach. The young ones, something is wrong. Dr. Parknari moved slowly, like she was approaching a wounded animal. She pulled out a medical scanner and held it where Sithara could see it. May I? Sithara nodded. The scanner hummed quietly as Dr. Parknari ran it over the Vorthak's body. Her face grew serious as she read the results. Stress-induced complications, she said quietly. The long space journey has affected the egg development. They're viable, but she needs immediate medical care and complete rest. Krelthak's claws scraped against the metal floor. How long? At least 3 days of absolute rest. Maybe a week. Any stress could... Dr. Parknari didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. The ambassador looked at his mate, then at the human doctor, then at the massive station around them. His yellow eyes burned with inner fire. The peace talks were supposed to start tomorrow. They would take at least a week. If he stayed with his mate, the talks would fail. If the talks failed, war would come. But if he left her side during this critical time... The eggs, Krelthak said slowly, must be protected above all else. This is the law of our people. Nothing matters more than the safety of the next generation. Li Huan felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on them. The wrong choice here could start a war that would kill billions. But looking at the fierce love in Krelthak's eyes as he looked at his mate, the captain understood that some things were more important than politics. Ambassador, Li Huan said carefully, Harmony Station's medical facilities are the best in this sector. Dr. Parknari is an expert in alien biology. We will take excellent care of your mate. Krelthak's laugh was like rocks falling down a cliff. You do not understand, human. Vorthak do not trust others with our young, ever. This has never been done in our history. The docking bay fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support systems. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. The future of the galaxy might depend on the next few words spoken. Li Huan looked at the massive alien warrior holding his sick mate. He saw something he hadn't expected to find in a Vorthak's eyes. Fear. Not fear of death or pain, but fear of losing someone precious. It was the most human thing he had ever seen in an alien's face. The medical bay of Harmony Station had never seen anything like this. Sithara lay on the largest medical bed, her massive form making it look like a child's toy. Machines beeped and hummed around her, monitoring every aspect of her condition. Dr. Parknari worked quietly, checking readings and adjusting settings. The Vorthak female's breathing was slow but steady. Ambassador Krelthak stood beside the bed like a living statue. He had not moved for 6 hours. His yellow eyes never left his mate's face. Every few minutes, he would gently touch her clawed hand with his own. The gesture was surprisingly tender for such a fearsome creature. Captain Li Huan watched from the doorway, His security team was stationed throughout the medical bay, but they all felt useless. How do you guard someone who could tear you apart? Without effort? How do you protect creatures that had conquered half the galaxy? Captain? Dr. Park Nari called softly. Could you come here? Li Huan approached carefully. He had learned to move slowly around the Vorthok. Quick movements made them think of attacks. He stopped a safe distance from the bed. How is she? He asked. Stable, but worried, Dr. Park Nari replied. The eggs are developing normally, but her stress levels are too high. In Vorthak biology, the mother's emotional state directly affects the young. If she stays this worried, it could harm them. Krelthak's head turned toward them, his burning eyes fixed on the human doctor. What causes this stress? Dr. Park Nari glanced at Li Huan before answering. She's afraid, Ambassador. Away from her home territory, surrounded by strangers, unable to protect herself properly. For a Vorthak female carrying eggs, this is the worst possible situation. Then we leave, Krelthak said immediately. We return home. The peace talks end. No. Sithara's weak voice stopped him. Her eyes opened slowly. The talks must continue. Too many will die if there is war. Our children will inherit a galaxy of blood and fire. Krelthak knelt beside the bed. His massive frame looked strangely small next to his mate. Nothing matters more than you and our young. Nothing. That is why the talks matter, Sithara replied. What kind of world do we leave for them? One where every species fights? Where Vorthak children know only war? The ambassador's claws scraped against the floor. Li Huan could see the war going on inside the alien's mind. Every instinct told him to protect his family. But his mate was right. The peace talks could prevent a galactic war. Millions of Vorthak children would benefit if the talks succeeded. There must be another way, Krelthak said finally. Dr. Park Nari checked her medical. Readings again. She needs constant monitoring for the next week. The eggs are at a critical stage. Any sudden change could be dangerous. Someone needs to be with her at all times. I will stay, Krelthak said immediately. Then the talks fail, Sithara replied. The other species will see this as Vorthak weakness. They will not take our offers seriously without you there. Li Huan had attended enough diplomatic meetings to know she was right. Ambassador Krelthak was not just any Vorthok. He was the greatest warrior of his generation, the voice of their entire empire. Without him, the other species would never believe the Vorthak truly wanted peace. Perhaps, Li Huan said carefully. There is another solution. Both Vorthak turned to look at him. Their combined stare was like standing in front of twin suns. Li Huan felt his mouth go dry, but he continued. What if someone else watched over Sithara and the eggs? Someone you trusted? Krelthak's laugh was like breaking glass. Trust? You do not understand, human. Vorthak do not trust others with our young. In our entire history, no outsider has ever been allowed near Vorthak eggs. It is forbidden by our oldest laws. Why? Li Huan asked. The question seemed to surprise Krelthak. He was quiet for a long moment before answering. Because the young are everything, he said finally. They are our future, our hope, our reason for existing. To trust another species with them, he shook his head. It has never been done because it cannot be done. Dr. Park Nari stepped forward. Ambassador, may I speak freely? Krelthak nodded. I have studied Vorthak biology for years. I know how important your young are to you, but I also know that stress and fear can kill them just as surely as any physical threat. Right now, your mate is terrified. That terror is poisoning her body chemistry. If this continues, you might lose everything anyway. Sithara's hand moved slightly. Krelthak took it immediately. The human doctor speaks truth, Sithara whispered. I can feel my fear affecting the eggs. They are restless, unhappy. Something must change. Krelthak closed his yellow eyes. When he opened them again, they held a decision that seemed to surprise even him. "Human captain," he said slowly, "if I were to consider this impossible thing, if I were to trust you with the most precious lives in the galaxy, what would you offer in return?" Li Huan felt the weight of the moment. This was bigger than the peace talks. This was bigger than politics or war. This was about trust between species that had never existed before. "Everything," Li Huan said simply. "We would offer everything we have. Our lives, our honor, our protection. We would guard your mate and eggs as if they were our own family." Family. Krelthak repeated the word like he was tasting something strange. "You would risk your lives for aliens you barely know?" "Yes," Li Huan replied without hesitation. "Why?" The question hung in the air. Li Huan thought about his own family back on Earth. His sister's children, who called him Uncle Huan and begged for stories about space. He thought about all the families throughout the galaxy who would suffer if war came. "Because protecting the innocent is what we do," he said finally. "It's who we are." Krelthak stared at him for a long time. The medical bay was silent except for the beeping of machines and the quiet sound of Sithara's breathing. "This is madness," Krelthak said finally. "In 10,000 years of Vorthak history, we have never trusted another species with our young. Our people will call me weak. They will say I have lost my mind." "What do you say?" Li Huan asked. Krelthak looked at his mate, then at the human captain, then back at his mate. Sithara's eyes were closed, but Li Huan could see she was listening to every word. "I say," Krelthak spoke slowly, "that perhaps it is time for Vorthak history to change." The words fell like stones into still water. Dr. Park Nari gasped quietly. Li Huan felt his heart speed up. This was impossible. This was unprecedented. This was exactly what the galaxy needed. "You would trust us?" Li Huan asked. "I would try to trust you," Krelthak corrected. "But know this, human. If any harm comes, to my mate or our eggs, if even one of them is lost due to your carelessness or weakness, I will hunt you across the stars. I will destroy everything you have ever loved. Do you understand?" Li Huan met the alien's burning gaze without flinching. "I understand, and I accept." Sithara's eyes opened. For the first time since arriving at the station, she looked peaceful. "Perhaps," she said softly, "our children will be born into a better galaxy than we expected." Outside the medical bay, other aliens were starting to hear rumors of what had happened. The Nexari delegation whispered among themselves in their clicking language. The proud Kelthran warriors shook their heads in disbelief. The mysterious hegemony. Representatives watched everything with cold, calculating eyes. None of them understood what was happening. How could the fierce Vorthak even consider trusting their most precious possession to another species? How could humans possibly protect something that the Vorthak themselves guarded so carefully? But in the medical bay, something new was being born. Not just Vorthak eggs, but a new kind of trust between species. A trust that would change everything. Li Huan looked at his team. Lieutenant Kim Jun stood straighter. Sergeant Choi Hana checked. Her weapons one more time. Private Yu Suna looked nervous, but determined. They all understood what this meant. They were about to attempt something that had never been done before. They were about to guard the future of the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and somehow they had to prove that humans could be trusted with the most precious things in the universe. The special chamber had been built in just 12 hours. Human engineers worked alongside Vorthak technicians to create something that had never existed before, a place where Vorthak eggs could be safely kept under alien protection. The room was small but perfect, with walls that could stop weapons fire and systems that controlled every aspect of the environment. Dr. Park Nari stood before a wall of monitors, each one showing different readings from inside the egg chamber. Temperature, humidity, air pressure, sound levels, everything had to be exactly right. One small mistake could kill the developing Vorthak young. "The eggs will be transferred in 1 hour," she told Captain Li Huan. "Once they're in there, we cannot make any mistakes. Vorthak eggs are incredibly sensitive during this stage of development." Li Huan nodded. His team was positioned throughout the medical bay. Lieutenant Kim Jun controlled access to the chamber. Sergeant Choi Hana monitored all security systems. Private Yu Suna stood ready to help Dr. Park with anything she needed. "What exactly do we need to watch for?" Corporal Oh Minho asked. He was the team's technical expert, in charge of maintaining all the chamber's systems. "Everything," Dr. Park Nari replied. "The eggs need constant warmth, but not too much heat. They need gentle vibrations, like a heartbeat, but nothing too strong. They respond to sound and emotion. If the parent is stressed, the eggs become stressed too." "How can eggs feel emotion?" Yusuna asked. "Vorthak development is different from human development," Dr. Park explained. "Their young begin forming pack bonds while still in the eggs. They can sense the emotional state of adults around them. That's why Vorthak parents never leave their eggs unguarded. The young need to feel safe and protected." The chamber door opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador Krelthak entered, carrying a container that looked like a metal nest. Inside were 3 oval objects, each one about the size of a human head. The eggs were dark gray with silver markings that seemed to pulse with their own light. Krelthak moved with incredible care. Each step was slow and deliberate. He placed the container in the center of the chamber, then began adjusting the eggs one by one. His massive claws, which could tear through armor, handled the eggs like they were made of glass. "They are beautiful," Yusuna whispered. Krelthak's head turned toward her. For a moment, his yellow eyes seemed less fierce. "Yes," he said simply. "They are everything." He finished positioning the eggs and stepped back. The chamber's sensors immediately began monitoring them. Dozens of readings appeared on Dr. Park's screens: heart rates, brain activity, growth rates, chemical balances. "All readings normal," Dr. Park announced. "The transfer was successful." Krelthak nodded, but Li Huan could see the pain in his eyes. Every instinct the Vorthak had was telling him to stay, to guard his young himself. Walking away from them was probably the hardest thing he had ever done. "I will return when I can," Krelthak said. "The first negotiation session begins in 2 hours." After he left, the humans settled into their vigil. Dr. Park Nari explained that someone needed to be watching the eggs at all times. They would work in shifts, with at least 2 people always present. The first few hours were quiet. The eggs seemed stable, their readings steady on all monitors. But as time passed, something strange began to happen. The eggs' activity levels started to change. Their heartbeats became faster, more irregular. "Something's wrong," Dr. Park said, checking her instruments. "Their stress levels are rising." "What could be causing it?" Li Huan asked. "They know their parents are gone," Dr. Park replied. "Vorthak eggs are used to constant contact with their pack. Now they're alone with strangers. They're afraid." The readings got worse. The eggs' life signs became more erratic. One of them started showing signs of developmental problems. "We need to do something," Yusuna said. "They're suffering." "But what?" Corporal Oh Minho asked. "We're not Vorthak. We can't give them what their parents would." Dr. Park Nari was studying the readings when she noticed something. "Wait, look at this. When we talk, their stress levels go down slightly. They're responding to our voices." "Should we keep talking to them?" Lieutenant Kim Jun asked. "Try it," Dr. Park said. "But speak softly, gently." Kim Jun approached the chamber. "Hello, little ones," he said quietly. "We're here to protect you. You're safe with us." The monitors showed an immediate response. The eggs' stress readings dropped slightly. Their heartbeats became more regular. "It's working," Dr. Park said with excitement. "Keep going." The humans took turns speaking to the eggs. They told them about their own families, about Earth, about the stars. They promised to keep them safe until their parents returned. Slowly, the eggs began to calm down. But after a few hours, even talking wasn't enough. The stress reading started climbing again. One egg in particular seemed to be struggling. Its development was slowing down. "We're losing them," Dr. Park said, quietly. "They need more than words. I don't know what they need." Corporal O. Minho had been silent for most of his shift. He was a quiet man who preferred machines to people. But as he watched the struggling eggs, something inside him responded to their distress. Without thinking, he began to hum. It was an old song his grandmother had sung to him as a child, a traditional Korean lullaby about the moon watching over sleeping children. The effect was immediate and dramatic. All three eggs responded to the gentle melody. Their stress levels dropped. Their heartbeats synchronized with the rhythm of the song. The struggling egg began to show signs of improvement. "Minho," Dr. Park whispered, "don't stop. Whatever you're doing, it's working." Oh, Minho continued humming, switching between different traditional songs. The eggs seemed to love every melody. Their bio readings stabilized completely for the first time since their parents had left. "How is this possible?" Yusuna asked. "Music," Dr. Park said with wonder in her voice. "Vorthak eggs respond to rhythmic sounds. In the wild, they would hear their parents' heartbeats, their breathing, their movements. Minho's humming is giving them something similar." Word spread quickly through the human team. During each shift, someone would sing or hum to the eggs. Yusuna had a beautiful voice and sang gentle songs about spring flowers and warm sunshine. Kim Jun hummed military marching songs that had strong, steady rhythms. Even the tough Sergeant Choi Hana sang quiet lullabies her mother had taught her. But the real discovery came during Yusuna's night shift. She was alone with the eggs, humming softly when she noticed something strange. The eggs seemed to be responding to her heartbeat. When she moved closer to the chamber, their readings improved even more. "Dr. Park," she called over the comm. "You need to see this." Dr. Park arrived quickly, still wearing her sleeping clothes. She looked at the monitors and gasped. "They're synchronizing with you," she said. "Your heartbeat, your breathing, they're using you as a substitute parent." Yusuna placed her hand gently against the chamber wall. The eggs' readings immediately became even more stable. "Is this okay? Am I hurting them?" "You're saving them," Dr. Park replied. "This is incredible. Interspecies emotional bonding during embryonic development. It's never been documented before." As the days passed, each human guard developed their own relationship with the eggs. Oh Minho's gentle humming helped them sleep. Yusuna's heartbeat kept them calm. Kim Jun's steady voice made them feel secure. Choi Hana's presence during dangerous moments taught them about protection and safety. The eggs began to respond differently to each human. They would become more active when certain people were on duty. They seemed to have preferences for different songs, different voices, different types of comfort. "They're learning," Dr. Park explained to Captain Li Huan. "Vorthak young begin, forming pack bonds while still in the eggs. These eggs are bonding with us." "Is that good or bad?" Li Huan asked. "I don't know," Dr. Park admitted. "This has never happened before. We're in completely unknown territory." Meanwhile, the peace talks were progressing in the main conference rooms. Ambassador Krelthak attended every session, but everyone could see the strain on him. He was fighting his every instinct by leaving his young in alien hands. Other species representatives watched the situation with fascination and concern. The Nexari thought it was a clever political move. The Kelthrans saw it as either great honor or great foolishness. The hegemony delegates watched everything with cold calculation, waiting to see if the humans would fail. "This cannot last," Ambassador. Vexilin of the Nexari told her aide. Humans are weak creatures. They will make a mistake, and the Vorthak will destroy them for it. Then we can pick up the pieces of these peace talks. But as each day passed without incident, the other species began to whisper among themselves. How were the humans succeeding where no other species would even dare to try? What did they know about protecting young that others did not? In the egg chamber, the three developing Vorthak continued to grow stronger. Their bio readings were actually better than normal for eggs at their stage of development. They were thriving under human care in ways that surprised everyone, including Dr. Park Nari. They're developing faster than expected, she told Li Huan, and their neural activity is unusually high. These eggs are not just surviving, they're excelling. What does that mean? Li Huan asked. I think, Dr. Park said slowly, it means they're happy. The attack came without warning. Private Yu Suna was on her night shift, humming softly to the Vorthak eggs, when the station's emergency alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the medical bay. The sound was so loud and sudden that she jumped, her heart racing with fear. All personnel to emergency stations. Captain Li Huan's voice came over the comm system. We are under attack. Repeat, Harmony Station is under attack. Yu Suna looked at the eggs in panic. The sudden noise and flashing lights had startled them. Their bio readings were spiking with stress. The developing young inside could sense danger, and they were afraid. It's okay, little ones, she whispered, trying to keep her voice calm. I'm here. You're safe. But even as she said the words, she could hear the sound of weapons fire echoing through the station's corridors. Explosions shook the walls. The peaceful diplomatic station had become a battlefield. Captain Li Huan burst into the medical bay, followed by Lieutenant Kim Jun and Sergeant Choi Hana. Their faces were grim with determination and fear. What's happening? Dr. Park Nari asked, running in from her office. Hegemony raiders, Li Huan replied quickly. At least 6 ships. They're trying to destroy the peace talks by force. All non-essential personnel are being evacuated to the emergency pods. We need to move the eggs, Dr. Park said immediately. Where? Li Huan asked. The evacuation pods aren't designed for Vorthak biology. The transfer alone could kill them. Another explosion rocked the station. This one was closer. The lights flickered, and several of the egg chamber's monitors went dark before backup power restored them. The chamber's environmental systems are connected to the main power grid, Corporal O Minho reported, checking his instruments. If we lose main power, we lose life support for the eggs. Dr. Park Nari's face went pale. How long can they survive on backup power? Maybe an hour, O Minho replied. Maybe less, if the backup systems get damaged. The sound of running footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Someone was shouting orders in a language none of them recognized. The attackers were getting closer. To the medical bay. Captain? Sergeant Choi Hana said. We need to follow evacuation protocols. Get everyone to the emergency pods. Li Huan looked at the eggs, then at his team, then back at the eggs. His face showed the terrible decision he was facing. Military protocol was clear. In an emergency, protect the people you can save. Don't risk many lives trying to save a few. But these weren't just any lives. These were the future children of Ambassador Krelthak. The Vorthak had trusted humans with their most precious possessions. If the eggs died under human protection, it would mean war between their species. Billions would die. No, Li Huan said finally. We stay. Captain? Kim Jun asked, surprised. We gave our word, Li Huan said firmly. We promise to protect these eggs with everything we have. That includes our lives. Another explosion shook the station. This time, several wall panels came loose and crashed to the floor. The lights went out completely for several seconds before the emergency power kicked in. The main power grid is failing, O Minho reported. Environmental systems are switching to backup power now. Dr. Park Nari was frantically checking the eggs' readings. They're panicking. The stress is affecting their development. If this continues, we'll lose them anyway. What do they need? Yusuna asked. Calm. Safety. The feeling that their protectors are not afraid, Dr. Park replied. Yusuna looked at the frightened eggs, then at her teammates, then made a decision that surprised everyone. She walked to the chamber and sat down on the floor beside it, placing both hands against the protective wall. Then that's what we'll give them, she said. She began to hum the same lullaby that had calmed the eggs before. Her voice was steady, despite the sounds of battle raging around them. The eggs' stress readings began to drop slightly. Suna, what are you doing? Kim Jun asked. My job, she replied simply, never stopping her gentle song. One by one, the rest of the team joined her. Kim Jun sat on the other side of the chamber. Oh Minho positioned himself where he could monitor the life support systems while staying close to the eggs. Sergeant Choi Hana took up a defensive position but kept her voice low and calm. If we're staying, we need a plan, Li Huan said. The attackers will reach this section soon. The eggs come first, Dr. Park said. Whatever happens, we keep them safe and calm, even if it means... Kim Jun didn't finish the question. Even if it means everything, Li Huan replied. The sound of fighting was getting closer. They could hear weapons fire in the next corridor. Someone was screaming. The attackers were methodically working their way through the station, destroying everything they found. The lights went out again. This time, they didn't come back on immediately. In the darkness, they could hear the eggs' life support systems switching to the final backup power source. How long? Li Huan asked. 30 minutes, Oh Minho replied quietly. Maybe less. Yusuna's humming never stopped. In the darkness, her voice was the only calm thing in a world of chaos. The eggs' bio readings showed they were responding to her presence, drawing comfort from her steady heartbeat and gentle song. They're so brave, Dr. Park whispered, watching the readings. Despite everything that's happening, they're fighting to survive. They're learning from us, Yusuna said softly. Vorthak young bond with their protectors, right? So if we're not afraid, they won't be afraid. Are you afraid? Kim Jun asked. Yusuna was quiet for a moment. Terrified, she admitted. But I won't let them feel it. The door to the medical bay exploded inward. Armed figures in dark armor rushed in, their weapons raised. The humans didn't move from their positions around the egg chamber. Stand down, the lead attacker shouted in broken galactic standard. Move away from the chamber. No, Li Huan said calmly. The attackers seemed confused. They had expected fear, panic, maybe resistance. They hadn't expected this quiet refusal to abandon their posts. Those are Vorthak eggs, the leader said. We know what they are. Move away or we destroy them. If you want to destroy them, Sergeant Choi Hana said without moving, you'll have to go through us first. The attackers raised their weapons. The Aiba humans didn't flinch. Yusuna continued humming. Oh Minho kept monitoring the life support systems. Dr. Park never took her eyes off the egg readings. You would die for alien spawn? The attacker asked with disgust. We would die for children, Li Huan replied. Any children. That's what humans do. For a moment, nobody moved. The attackers seemed genuinely confused by the humans' behavior. In their experience, people abandoned the weak when their own lives were threatened. They had never seen anything like this before. Then the station's main power came back online. The lights blazed to life. The sound of heavy footsteps filled. The corridor outside, Vorthak warriors were coming. Ambassador Krelthak appeared in the doorway like an avenging demon. His yellow eyes burned with fury. His claws were extended and covered with blood. Behind him came his pack warriors, moving with deadly grace. The attackers turned their weapons toward the Vorthak, but it was too late. Krelthak moved faster than anything that large should have been able to move. In seconds, the threat was eliminated. "My young," Krelthak said, rushing to the chamber. "Are they safe?" "They're fine," Dr. Parknari replied, checking her monitors. "Actually, they're better." "Then fine. Look at these readings." Krelthak studied the displays. His fierce expression slowly changed to amazement. "These levels, they are perfect. Better than perfect. How is this possible during an attack?" "Your young learned something tonight," Yusuna said, still sitting beside the chamber. "They learned that some people will never abandon them, no matter what happens." Krelthak looked at the humans positioned around his eggs. They were exhausted, frightened, but they had never moved from their protective positions. Even when their own lives were threatened, they had put the eggs first. "You stayed," he said with wonder in his voice. "When you could have fled to safety, you stayed with my young." "We gave our word," Li Huan said simply. The Vorthak ambassador stared at the human captain for a long moment. Then he did something that had never been recorded in galactic history. Krelthak, the greatest warrior of his generation, knelt before a human. "You have shown honor beyond my understanding," he said. "Tonight, you proved that some bonds are stronger than fear, stronger than death itself." The eggs' readings showed something remarkable. Despite the attack, despite the chaos and danger, they were calmer and more stable than they had been since arriving at the station. They had felt their protector's courage, and it had made them strong. "The young ones," Krelthak said softly, "they will remember this night for the rest of their lives. They will remember that humans stood between them and danger, that humans chose their safety over their own." As medical teams arrived to check on everyone, and as security forces swept the station for remaining threats, the humans finally allowed themselves to feel the exhaustion and fear they had been hiding. But when they looked at the peaceful eggs sleeping safely in their chamber, they knew it had all been worth it. They had passed the ultimate test. They had proven that human promises meant something, even in the face of death. And in doing so, they had forged a bond between species that would change the galaxy forever. 3 days after the attack, something wonderful began to happen. Dr. Parknari noticed it first during her morning check of the eggs. The bio readings were different, not wrong, but changed in ways she had never seen before. The developing Vorthak. Young were moving more actively inside their shells, their heart rates were stronger, their brain activity was unusually high. "Captain," she called to Li Huan, excitement clear in her voice. "You need to see this." Li Huan hurried over to look. At the monitors, the readings meant nothing to him, but Dr. Park's face told him everything he needed to know. "They're ready," she said with amazement. "The eggs are preparing to hatch, but this is impossible." "Why impossible?" Private Yusuna asked from her position beside the chamber. She had barely left the egg's side since the attack 3 days ago. Vorthak eggs normally take 14 days to hatch after reaching this stage of development, Dr. Park explained. "These eggs should need at least another week. But look at these scans. The young inside are fully formed and ready to emerge." "Is that dangerous?" Corporal Ominho asked. "I don't know," Dr. Park admitted. "This has never been documented before. The stress from the attack might have triggered early development or—" She paused, studying the readings more carefully. "Or—" "What?" Li Huan asked. "Or they're responding to something else entirely," Dr. Park said slowly. "Look at these neural patterns. The young are not just developed, they're excited, eager, like they can't wait to meet someone." As if responding to her words, one of the eggs began to rock slightly. A small crack appeared along its surface, glowing with silver light. "It's starting," Dr. Park whispered. She immediately contacted Ambassador Krelthak, who was in the middle of a critical negotiation session. Within minutes, he arrived at the medical bay with his mate, Sithara. The female Vorthak had recovered enough to walk, though she still moved carefully. "So soon?" Sithara asked, looking at her eggs with wonder and concern. The readings are all normal, Dr. Park assured her. Actually, they're better than normal. Your young are strong and healthy. The crack in the first egg grew larger. A small sound came from inside, a tiny chirping noise that was surprisingly musical. The other two eggs began to rock as well, responding to their siblings' call. They're talking to each other, Yusuna said with delight. Yes, Krelthak replied, his fierce face showing unusual gentleness. Vorthak young coordinate their hatching. They emerge together, as a pack. More cracks appeared on all three eggs. The chirping sounds grew louder and more complex. To human ears, it sounded like singing. Should we do anything? Lieutenant Kim Jun asked. Just watch, Sithara replied. This is their moment. They must emerge on their own, or they will never be strong. The first egg split open with a soft cracking sound. A small gray head poked out, followed by tiny clawed hands. The baby Vorthak, called a Clith, was about the size of a human infant, but already showed the features that would make it a mighty warrior someday. But something unexpected happened. Instead of looking first at its parents, the Clith turned its small yellow eyes toward the humans. Its gaze fixed on Yusuna, who had been humming to it for days. The tiny creature made a soft cooing sound and reached toward her with one small hand. Extraordinary, Dr. Park breathed. It's trying to bond with Suna. The second egg hatched, then the third. All three Clith showed the same behavior. They looked at their parents, but they also looked at the humans with obvious recognition and affection. Sithara moved closer to her children, making gentle sounds in the Vorthak language. The Clith responded to their mother, but they kept looking back at the humans who had protected them. This is not normal behavior, Krelthak said, though he didn't sound upset. Vorthak young usually bond only with their birth parents and pack elders. These young are special, Dr. Park said, watching the readings on her monitors. They've formed secondary bonds with their human protectors. It's unprecedented in any species' biology. One of the Clith made a small chittering sound. Minho, recognizing it as distress, began to hum the same lullaby he had sung during the young one's development. Immediately, the Clith calmed down and made happy chirping noises. They know your voices, Sithara said with wonder. They know each of you. It was true. When Kim Jun spoke in his steady, reassuring voice, the Clith turned toward him with obvious recognition. When Sergeant Choi, Hana moved to check the chamber's security. They watched her with the trust they would normally show only to their own parents. How is this possible? Krelthak asked. Vorthak young begin forming pack bonds while still in the eggs, Dr. Park explained. During their most vulnerable time, when they needed protection and comfort, they bonded with the humans who provided it. The stress from the attack probably strengthened those bonds. They think we're family, Yusuna said softly, reaching toward the chamber. One of the Clith immediately moved closer to her hand, making content purring sounds. Word of the hatching spread quickly through Harmony Station. Representatives from dozens of species came to witness something that had never happened before in galactic history. Vorthak young had bonded with an alien species. Ambassador Vex Olin of the Nexari stared at the scene with calculating eyes. This changes everything, she whispered to her aide. If Vorthak young can bond with humans. General Mordain of the Kelthrans watched with growing respect. His warrior culture understood the significance of what they were seeing. The humans have achieved something we thought impossible, he said. They have earned the trust of the fiercest predators in the galaxy, but not everyone was pleased. Some species saw the human Vorthak bond as a threat to the balance of power. The remaining hegemony representatives watched with cold anger, already planning how to use this development for their own purposes. In the medical bay, oblivious to the political implications of their existence, the three Clith continued to explore their new world. They chirped at their parents, played with each other, and consistently sought attention from their human protectors. "They're beautiful," Yusuna said, watching them with tears in her eyes. "They are the future," Krelthak replied. "These young will grow up knowing that humans can be trusted. They will carry that knowledge throughout their lives." Dr. Park Nari was taking detailed recordings of everything. "This will revolutionize our understanding of interspecies relationships," she said. "The implications for diplomacy, for cooperation between species." "The implications for war," Li Huan added quietly. "If Vorthak Young can bond with humans, it changes the entire strategic balance of the galaxy." Sith Ara picked up one of her children, holding the small Clith gently in her massive arms. The baby made happy sounds, but kept looking over at the humans with obvious affection. "What will you call them?" Kim Jun asked. Krelthak and Sith Ara exchanged glances. In Vorthak culture, naming was a sacred responsibility. Names carried power and meaning that would shape a young one's entire life. "This one," Sith Ara said, indicating the first Clith to hatch, "will be called Keth Miran. It means first to trust." "This one," Krelthak said, picking up the second, "will be Morthara, bridge between worlds." "And this one," Sith Ara continued, "with the third, will be Velkanan, singer of peace." Each name was perfect. The humans could see the personalities already emerging in the young Vorthak. Keth Miran was bold and curious. Morthara was thoughtful and observant. Velkanan was gentle and responsive to music. "They will be raised knowing both their Vorthak heritage and their human protectors," Krelthak announced. "They will be living symbols of what our species can accomplish together." As the day wore on, more and more aliens came to see the miraculous Clith. Some came out of curiosity, others out of scientific interest. A few came to judge whether this development was dangerous to their own interests. But for the humans who had risked everything to protect 3 unborn lives, the moment was simple and pure. They had kept their promise. They had proven that trust between species was possible. And in doing so, they had helped bring 3 beautiful new lives into the galaxy. "Dr. Park," Yusuna said quietly, "what happens now?" Dr. Park looked at the Clith, then at their parents, then at the crowds of aliens gathering outside the medical bay. "Now," she said with a smile, "everything changes." The 3 young Vorthak, unaware that their very existence was reshaping galactic politics, continued to chirp and play. They were healthy, happy, and surrounded by love from 2 different species. In their innocent eyes, there was no difference between Vorthak and human protectors. They had been born into a galaxy where such bonds were impossible. But their existence proved that the impossible could become reality when beings chose trust over fear, protection over self-interest, and love over hatred. The future had just gotten a little brighter, one small chirp at a time. The peace conference ended not with signatures on a treaty, but with something far more powerful: 3 small Vorthak Clith playing in the diplomatic chambers, while their parents and human protectors watched with pride. Captain Li Huan stood at the observation deck where this all began, but now everything was different. The ships departing Harmony Station carried news that would spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The fierce Vorthak, the species that had never trusted anyone with their young, had not only allowed humans to protect their eggs, but had witnessed their children bond with aliens. "The Nexari delegation is already calling it the Harmony Precedent," Lieutenant Kim Jun reported, reading from a diplomatic tablet. "They're saying it will reshape interspecies law. The Kelthrans want to establish similar protection protocols for their own young," Sergeant Choi Hanna added. "General Mordain said watching us gave him new ideas about what courage really means." Li Huan nodded, but his attention was focused on the medical bay where Private Yusuna was saying goodbye to the Clith. The young Vorthak were old enough now to travel safely, and Ambassador Krelthak was preparing to take his family home to share the news with their empire. Dr. Park Nari emerged from the medical bay with a thick folder of research data. Her face showed exhaustion, but also excitement that could barely be contained. "Captain," she said, "what we've documented here will change everything we thought we knew about interspecies bonding. The Clith didn't just survive under human protection. They thrived. Their development was accelerated, their intelligence enhanced, their emotional stability improved beyond anything in Vorthak medical history." "What does that mean?" Corporal O'Minho asked. "It means," Dr. Park replied, "that when species truly trust each other, when they're willing to sacrifice for each other's young, both species become stronger. The humans learned about Vorthak biology and culture. The Clith learned about human compassion and protection. Everyone benefited." Through the medical bay windows, they could see Krelthak speaking with his mate while the three Clith played nearby. The young Vorthak had grown remarkably in just a few days. They were larger, more active, and more intelligent than typical Clith their age. But the most remarkable thing about them was how they moved between their Vorthak parents and their human protectors with equal comfort. They chirped in Vorthak to their biological family, but they also hummed human melodies they had learned in the eggs. They played Vorthak games, but they also responded to human voices with obvious joy. "They're truly bilingual," Dr. Park observed. "Not just in language, but in culture, in emotional expression, in everything." Yusuna came out of the medical bay with tears in her eyes. She had formed the strongest bond with the Clith, spending more time with them than anyone except their parents. "They're leaving in an hour," she said quietly. "Krelthak says they need to return home to show the Vorthak Empire what happened here." "This isn't goodbye forever," Li Huan assured her. "What we've built here is just the beginning." He was right. In the days since the hatching, communications had been pouring in from across the galaxy. The human diplomatic corps wanted to establish permanent cultural exchange programs with the Vorthak. Other species were requesting human advisors for their own diplomatic missions. Universities were offering research grants to study the new models of interspecies cooperation. But perhaps most importantly, Ambassador Krelthak had announced something unprecedented. He was establishing a new Vorthak tradition, the Keth-Moran Protocol. Any Vorthak family could request human protection for their young during times of crisis. In return, humans would be granted honorary pact status within Vorthak society. For 10,000 years, Krelthak had said during his final diplomatic address, the Vorthak believed that only we could protect what we valued most. Today, we learned that trust can make us all stronger. The humans who guarded my young did not just keep them safe. They helped them become better than they would have been alone. The ceremony to formalize the new agreements was simple but profound. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the main conference hall. But the real ceremony happened in the medical bay, where three small Clith said goodbye to their human family. Keth-Miran, the boldest of the three, chirped a complex melody that combined Vorthak hunting songs with human lullabies. Morthera, the thoughtful one, presented each human with a small claw shed during growth, a Vorthak symbol of trust and kinship. Velkanen, the gentle singer, hummed the first song O'Minho had taught them, bringing tears to the tough corporal's eyes. "We will remember," Keth-Miran said in careful but clear human language, the first Vorthak child ever to speak human words. "We will visit," Morthera added. "We will sing," Velkanen finished, making everyone smile. Sith Ara approached the humans. With formal dignity, but her yellow eyes showed deep emotion. "You have given my children something no Vorthak parent could give alone," she said. "You have shown them that the galaxy is larger and more wonderful than they would have learned from us. For this gift, the Vorthak will be forever grateful." Ambassador. Krelthak's farewell was even more significant. He knelt before each human, an honor reserved for the greatest Vorthak heroes, and spoke words that would be recorded in both human and Vorthak history. "Captain Li Huan," he said, "you have shown that promises between species can be stronger than fear or death. You are Keth Moran, chosen family protector. Dr. Park Nari, you have proven that understanding between species can heal and strengthen both. You are Velmiran, Bridge of Wisdom. Lieutenant Kim Jun, Sergeant Choi Hana, Corporal Oh Minho, Private Yu Suna, you have demonstrated that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to protect others despite that fear. You are all Morketh, guardians of the future. Each title was unprecedented in Vorthak culture. No non-Vorthak had ever been granted such honors. But then again, no non-Vorthak had ever earned them. As the Vorthak family prepared to depart, other species representatives approached the humans with their own proposals. The Nexari offered technological exchanges. The Kelthrans proposed joint military exercises based on the new principles of protective cooperation. Even some former enemies began discussing peaceful solutions to old conflicts. "You've started something that will spread throughout the galaxy," Dr. Park told Li Huan, as they watched the Vorthak ship prepare for departure. "We just did our job," Li Huan replied. "We protected children who needed protection." "That's exactly why it worked," Dr. Park said. "You didn't see them as alien eggs or political symbols. You saw them as children who needed care." The departure was bittersweet. The Clith pressed against the windows of their ship, chirping farewell songs to their human protectors. The humans waved until the ship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying its precious cargo home to a Vorthak empire that would never be quite the same. In the weeks that followed, the changes continued to ripple outward. The peace treaty was signed, but it was unlike any treaty in galactic history. Instead of focusing on trade agreements and territorial boundaries, it established principles of mutual protection and cultural exchange. Human children began learning Vorthak protection songs. In school, Vorthak warriors started studying human concepts of sacrificial courage. Other species created their own versions of the Keth Moran Protocol, establishing networks of mutual child protection that crossed all species lines. 6 months later, Li Huan received a message that made him smile. It was a recording from Keth Moran, now a strong young Vorthak preparing for warrior training. But instead of traditional Vorthak battle cries, the message began with a gentle human lullaby. "Uncle Huan," Keth Moran said in fluent human language, "we are growing strong. Mother says we will visit Harmony Station next season. Morthara wants to study with Dr. Park. Velkanen has composed new songs that mix human and Vorthak music. I want to learn human protection techniques to make our pack even stronger." The message continued with updates from all three Clith. They were excelling in their education, but they were also teaching other young Vorthak about human culture. They had become living bridges between their species, exactly as their parents had hoped. "We still remember the songs you sang to us in the dark," the message concluded. "We remember how you stayed when you could have fled. We remember that humans taught us love is stronger than fear. Thank you for showing us that the galaxy is full of family we just haven't met yet." Li Huan saved the message and shared it with his team. Yu Suna, now promoted to sergeant, wiped away tears as she listened. Oh Minho, typically quiet, just smiled and hummed one of the old lullabies. The others nodded with satisfaction. They had kept their promise, and the results were better than they had ever imagined. As he stood once again at the observation deck, watching new ships arrive for ongoing diplomatic missions, Li Huan reflected on what they had learned. The galaxy was vast and full of different species, many of whom had been enemies for generations. But underneath all the differences, all the conflicts, all the fear and mistrust, there was something universal. Every species loved their children. Every parent wanted their young to be safe, to grow strong, to have a better future than they themselves had known. And when beings were willing to risk everything to protect those children, even children of another species,